Hello again. For this lecture, we're going to take a closer look at our reading for this week, which is The Use of Force by Carlos Williams, and we're going to look at a little bit of the background of the author. It is better if you have listened to the other mini lectures, The Elements of Fiction and Literary Devices, Part 1, so that you have an idea of the definitions that we're going to be using. So let's take a look at the background of our author. It's always a good idea to have an understanding of who wrote the story because that can help you analyze the story. So William Carlos Williams was born in 1883 and he died in 1963. So that should give us a focus as to when he could have possibly written the story that we're going to read. Also, let's find out this. He was born in Rutherford, and he also wrote a lot about the city of Paterson. He's actually quite famous for his Paterson poetry. But what can we kind of glean from this? If he was born in Rutherford, what was Rutherford like in the early 20th century? It certainly was not the meadowlands that we know today. Rutherford was mostly farmland, rural, and that would contrast with Paterson, which also was not the city that it is today. Paterson was, more dynamic, and it didn't have urban blight in that time period. So we have this kind of background about William Carlos Williams, and then we can say, I know this little bit about him, and I can start applying it to the story I'm going to read. The first thing I want to show you, though, is a small poem by him called The Red Wheelbarrow, and that is one of his more famous poems. So we're going to take a look at that. And also, this is the information. I got it from this website, so if you want to go and investigate some more, please do so. Okay, so the red wheelbarrow. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. Well, a lot of times when I assign this poem in an in-class session, students are, they have mixed reactions to the poem. It's kind of funny because it ends with chickens, right? It doesn't give you any kind of, in-depth, serious tone. But anyway, we're going to take a look at this. Now, the red wheelbarrow, so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow. And what is a wheelbarrow? You know what that is, that thing that you kind of push around on a farm. Glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. So we know this about William Carlos Williams. He grew up in Rutherford. He was definitely surrounded by farmland, etc. And so this is something that is having influence on what he's writing poetry about. If you are a farmer, so much depends upon what? A wheelbarrow? Well, if you're a farmer in the early 20th century, the kind of tools that you're using for your farm are certainly more archaic than they are today. But so a farmer is going to depend upon it. So much is going to depend upon his ability to move whatever around his farm. It's also so much depends upon, right, the glazed with water. Well, because what does a farm depend on? I think part of it is water. Right? And so we get this image where we have the red wheelbarrow that the farmer depends on, and it's glazed with the rainwater. So we know that it has recently been raining, which is going to be good. And then the last two lines, beside the white chickens. So we know that the farm is filled with life and it's functioning. And so much, to the farmer at least, is depending upon these very simple ideas, but not so simple, because really so much does depend upon it. We also get a visual. We look at it and we should be able to visualize that red wheelbarrow. We should be able to visualize it after it has rained and you can see the raindrops that are still collected on it. And you can have the visual of white chickens pecking around beside it. So in this short little poem, you can begin to analyze what's going on with it, and you can also start to appreciate the visuals. Do you have a different interpretation? Maybe you do. Think about it. Okay, so I'm not going to walk through this entire story. I want to give you a chance to do it. But there's a few things that I want you to notice while you are analyzing this. Okay, we see that it is what? They were new patients to me. It is in the first person point of view. So we know that there is one person who was telling this story. That's going to be important because it's only going to be filtered through that character. All I had was the name Olson. Olson is something, if you can bring in prior knowledge, you might know that Olson is a name of Scandinavian immigrants. And there was a whole bunch of people that immigrated to the United States from Scandinavia, and most of them became farmers. A lot of them moved out to the Midwest and also a little bit into Canada. And so what you hear now in some of the accents from people in the Midwest or in Canada, if you ever seen the movie Fargo, you hear them, they have this kind of Scandinavian accent, even though they're speaking English. They go, yeah, yeah, and you know, it's not about, it's a boot, right? So bring your prior knowledge into things when you're analyzing. Olson is the name of Scandinavian immigrants. So we might have an idea that the family that we're reading about might be immigrants, but at the very least, they're going to be probably farmers, okay? So then, when we look here, we find out the daughter is very sick. We see the mother, and this is again filtered through the eyes of the narrator. The narrator is looking, a big startled woman. Come on in. You must excuse us, doctor. Oh, who's the narrator? The narrator is going to be the doctor, right? And we have her in the kitchen where it's warm. It's very damp here sometimes. So we have an idea of what kind of setting this is taking place. Probably a farm place, and if there's a problem with the interior and how it's heated, we have an idea. It's not a modern building. It's an older building. It's not stuff that we're used to, draftiness, stuff like that. So we have the setting is starting to take place. I want to call your attention, and you will read this more in depth. Call your attention to this. They're spending $3 on me. Okay, when was the last time, number one, you've had a house call from a doctor, and number two, it cost $3? That is going to give you a point. When is this taking place? It's not taking place in 2010. It's not taking place even in 1980. This has got to be taking place quite a while ago. What else can we see? We can see that, if we're going to look at that, he uses this term, photogravure. What is a photogravure? You might need to look that one up. And if you do, you should make a note of that in the margins, right? So we know that that is something else that is dating what is going on here. What time period do you think this is taking place in? You should be able to get a good grasp of what time period. Okay, I want you to notice how he is looking at his patient. Okay, he says things. She did not move. She seemed quiet, an unusually attractive little thing, and strong as a heifer in appearance. How is he looking at her? He's calling her unusually attractive, however, also a heifer. What's a heifer? It's a female cow. You should make note of that if you don't know that, okay? She has magnificent blonde hair in profusion. So he has this immediate reaction to who his patient is. And as you continue to read through this, you might want to think about that. What is going on here? How come he's thinking that way? Another thing we can glean about the family, look at how they talk, okay? We see here that the farmer or the father, I should say, says, "We thought you'd better look her over." So how is their language and their speech pattern? How is that reflective of who they are and who the doctor is? Because people who are educated speak in one way, and people who are not speak in a different vernacular, right? So these are all little things that you can take, that you should pay attention to as you're going through this and trying to analyze the story. I'm not going to take you any further. I want you to do this yourself. So continue to read through the story and start to look at it with an analytical eye, and start pulling out these ideas that are happening within the story. It's all there. It's just that you have to apply your analytical mind to looking through it. Okay, talk to you later.